This is Dr. J. Welcome to Thesis in 101, where you are on an emotional roller coaster. In the series, we cover tips and tricks to help you in your research journey. If you have missed the first lesson in the series, please check out the description box below for the links. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Today's focus is on how to find frameworks. Let's get right into it. In the first lesson, we spoke about the importance of frameworks and how we use it in everyday life. Today we take it one step further and we will be looking at practical tips on how to find one. So, step 1, get to know your project, even if it's just at a high level. Think about your title, the problem you would like to solve, the research questions you would like to answer, and have just a little bit of knowledge on existing literature. Once you have some sort of idea what your project is about, finding a framework is much easier. Here's an example. We are aiming to define a digital business strategy. The issue is that we have spotted this new phenomenon, but we don't quite know what it is, nor do we know what it looks like, and we don't quite know just how to create and use it. We also don't know the impact of this phenomenon on the way organizations are currently operating. Because this is new, not a lot of research have been done on the phenomenon, but the bits and pieces that we gathered from existing literature states that the DBS is an amalgamation of a business strategy and an IT strategy. This means that business and IT strategy must be aligned. In addition, this DBS is mostly spotted in dynamic and complex environments or systems. Once you, at a high level, know what your project is about, you can move to step 2, which is to highlight keywords. Our topic speaks about a digital business strategy. In our background, we cannot really see keywords in this example, but you can definitely check if you have. And then in our lit review, we see quite a few. We have business strategy, IT strategy, alignment, dynamic, complex, and system. Write them down on a piece of paper somewhere. This will be very useful when you have to search for your framework. Step 3, go to Google, not Google Scholar, normal Google. And now we're going to play a game called Where is Waldo Framework Style. For some topics, especially if a lot of research have been done on it already, the chances are that you will find a framework fairly easily. If, like this example, you are dealing with a new phenomenon with sparse literature, then finding a framework will be a little bit more challenging. So the first keyword combo we will use is digital business strategy, and then we will add the word framework. When the results pop up, click on images. Like with any other search you do on Google, if you do not find something that seems right to you in the first page, then move on to another keyword combo. For this reason, we will only focus on the first 20 images or so. As you can see, there isn't any framework that speaks to a digital business strategy. Because the DBS is a new phenomenon, it is to no surprise that I cannot find anything. While I see a lot of frameworks on digital strategy or transformation strategy, I know that this is not appropriate because through my lit review I've come to learn that those strategies are not the same as a digital business strategy. This is why it is so important for you to do your homework before looking for a framework. Let's move on to the next keyword combo. We have business strategy. Again, because I have done a bit of reading on the subject, I know that if I look for a framework called business strategy, it will only encompass half of the DBS. The same will happen if I look for an IT strategy framework. So I strike that through too. Let's move on to our next keyword combo, which is business and IT strategy alignment. An easy way to spot if something is usable is to look for pictures with arrows. In the next tutorial, I will show you how to use frameworks and why the arrows are so important. So, on this result page, picture number 1 is definitely out because it doesn't have any arrows, but picture number 2 is looking promising. Click on it to have a better view of it. It's talking about business strategy and its relationship with IT strategy. Part of our project was also looking at organizational impact, and this framework has that covered. If you look at the bottom, it also speaks about alignment. This looks like it could be the one. Before we select it though, we need to do some validations. We first ask if this is a real framework and not just something someone created on a random blog. We are doing research, so our framework must be supported by acceptable literature. Nothing from YouTube or blogs or well-intentioned research tutorials. For this, we need to go to Google Scholar. Type in the framework name as you would on normal Google. The first result looks promising as it speaks about the strategic alignment model. Download that paper and scroll through it to see if the picture we saw on the normal Google matches the one in this paper. Yes, it does. So we can consider this as a, in quotes, real framework. Next, we have to validate if what we think this framework is about is really what it is about. To do this, you look at the credits on the framework to establish the original author. Find the original author's explanation of the framework by doing a search in Google Scholar of the author's name and the year the model was created as per our reference data. As you can see, the original description of the model is in much more detail than the later papers that applies this model in their studies. It is always best to check out the original work so you don't end up with a broken telephone situation. Before you go into depth in understanding the model though, I urge you to go to Google, enter the framework and click on videos. I promise you the 4-minute video on the framework will make a lot more sense to you than reading the actual paper. Thereafter, you can read as many papers as you like. Next, we have to validate if there are later versions of this framework. We do this so we will always use the most appropriate template. As you may remember, in our background we said that the digital business strategy is a new phenomenon. The framework we found was created in 1989, which means that the framework will not cover everything that we would like to do in the study, because when it was created it may not have taken things like dynamic and complex environment into consideration as per the study's keywords. So we need to go back to Google Scholar to check if someone has upgraded the framework to include these. But for now we can mark that we have found something that relates to business and IT strategy alignment. To search for the latest version of this framework, enter the keywords as per normal. Choose a recent date. I'm thinking we can use studies published from 2016. Of course, you can use any parameters that works for you. There is no hard rule. The first result looks promising because it looks at dynamic capabilities, which is part of our keywords. Just by reading the abstract, you can see that this paper is talking about another framework, which is the dynamic capabilities view. While it is talking about alignment, that perspective is too far out for what we would like to achieve. So we need to go to a different paper. The third line, "Is Sam still alive?" looks promising too. If we look at the images, they are definitely talking about our framework, and they even mention the original author's names. Looking at the purpose of the study, they are not really updating the model, but it would make a good read, so you can download it and save it for later. Continue this process until you feel like you have done enough research into checking if there is a newer version of that framework anywhere. In papers, look for keywords that speaks to extensions. That is an indication that the researchers made some adjustments to the framework. While it may look like we have found our framework, you need to go back to your keywords to see if there are any other keywords that must still be reviewed. In this case, we still have dynamic, complex, and system. Continue the search, first on normal Google, then moving to Google Scholar to do the validation and learning more about the frameworks. In this example, the word dynamics didn't give us an appropriate framework. But the combination of complex systems framework gave us another framework that can be used in the study. Even though the keywords didn't yield results in our search, the keywords must still be used to ensure that the framework we choose covers all of them. In this particular study, it looks like we have to transpose two frameworks because neither one covers all the angles we would like to cover in the study. Depending on the level of research skills you have to demonstrate, try to stick to one framework. It is just so much easier. But if one framework isn't cutting it, you may have to expand one or combine frameworks into a conceptual model that is specifically designed for your study. By the way, a conceptual framework works the same as a theoretical framework, the biggest difference being that a conceptual framework is born out of existing theoretical frameworks and literature to create a lens that is specific to your study. In other words, you as the researcher creates conceptual frameworks. You only really use this if you need a customized lens to view your research through. In summary, first understand your project, then look for frameworks online. Of course, validate those frameworks, then make sure that you have an understanding of your framework. That concludes this lesson. If you are interested and you would like to see more videos like this, please give this a big thumbs up. Our next lesson is focused on how to use frameworks in our research. Let me know if there are any other topics you would like me to cover. Signing off.